Alright, so we're here in the garage, and to know what expansion tank PSI we need, we really need to test our water pressure in our house. So I'm going to put on, I have this pressure gauge here, and I'm going to screw this on here. Okay. And we're going to turn on the water and see what we get. Yeah, now you can see that is way, way too high. So the maximum pressure that you really should have in your home is 80. 55 is ideal. You can see we got up to 125 burst and a little over 100 static now, just holding. There's nothing running in the house right now, so unfortunately we're going to have to fix that before we can install the water heater. Alright, so I went spelunking here in the walls and just came across where on the other side of this wall is our main shutoff. And so I just kind of figured in this stud bay is where we'd find the piping into the house, and sure enough, here we are. Now, you'll notice if you look down in there, it's really a rat's nest of shark bite fittings, which really kind of disappointed me when I found that, because this is a new construction home that we built in 2018, and really wasn't aware that that is how the plumbing was done in there. But nevertheless, what I think we need to do is, you can see that this pipe right here has some insulation around it coming up through the slab. So this is likely our main supply from the meter. And so we're going to cut off water to the house and tap into this pipe. We'll probably have it run out of the drywall and then come up to about right here. And that will let us tie in a pressure regulator right here. And so let me go do that. I'll turn off the water, drain as much water as I can from the pipes, and then we'll cut it and see what happens. All right, so I was correct. That was the supply line. So what I'm doing right now is just going through, putting some elbows in. You're going to come over with a pipe and then come out of the wall here. And I'll cut up here, come out of the wall here, and then I'll have the space right there like we talked about before for the pressure regulator valve. Okay, so I'm just about wrapped up here with the pressure regulator. So you can see we came out of the wall as expected, came up. Went ahead and put a hole, just a shutoff valve here. Wherever possible, I used the crimp rings. I just trust those a little bit more. It was so convenient, though, to get these pressure regulators with the shark bites. And I feel like if you're going to use shark bites as opposed to being down on a wall like they did, I feel like if you're going to use shark bites, having them exposed in a garage, like if this leaks, it's not inside the house. It's not the worst thing that could possibly happen. And you have a shutoff right here. So it's a pretty low risk environment. But we have the pressure regulator. This is the Acme Cash pressure regulator. And then I found this at Home Depot. It's another shark bite fitting off a pressure gauge. So now I can always see if my regulator is working. And you can see that now we are at 55. And if we walk over here to the spigot, just to confirm we got everything correct, we can turn this on. And you can see where that was 100 before. Now it's right around 55. I thought I would show you all this cool little tool here. So I use this every time that I do PEX with the crimp style. You can see it's got a 3-4 go and a 3-4 no-go. Oh, it's hard to focus on the metal here, but no-go at the top. So all you do is you just take this and you try to put it on your here. So if it, see that won't fit, that's actually a good thing. That's if it fit, that would be a no-go. But if I turn it over and we do the 3-4 go, see how it fits right on there? It's a perfect fit. So whenever you're doing PEX, always grab one of these tools and just check all of your connections. All right, so we're getting ready to do the water heater removal. First step, always come to the panel. Hopefully you got a good panel schedule over here that you can reference, but we know that ours is on a 30 amp double pole breaker here, so we're gonna take this this metal stop here out and we're gonna flip the breaker off. So now we should be able to safely go in there and mess with wires. Of course, we'll double check with the on-contact voltage meter and our multimeter, but for now, should be good to go, and we'll go in there and check it out. All right, second step, of course, is to go ahead and cut off the water. So I'm actually going to use our fancy new cutoff valve here. So we'll just go ahead and shut off the water. So there's now no water to the house. Okay, so here I've got my thermal expansion tank. I don't currently have one installed. I should have had one. When I moved into the house, we didn't have the water softener that we do right now. And So I think technically at the time we had an open system, so there wasn't a check valve or any sort of backflow preventer. Since adding the water softener, we technically should have added an expansion tank at the time. Certainly need to do one now. So we've got a 50-gallon tank. I've got a 2-gallon expansion tank here. We know from our earlier test that our pressure from the system is now 55. This one comes pre-charged at 40. Okay, so to do that, you're gonna unscrew the blue cap here, and what you're left with, very familiar. That is essentially what you have on a bicycle. So we're gonna take our connection here from our Milwaukee inflator. Man, this is hard to do with one hand. You switch to my correct hand here. All right, there we go. So this is hard. All right, so we're gonna turn on Milwaukee. And you can see it says it comes charged at 40 psi. I'm reading 44 psi. So we're going to go bump it up to 55, like that. All right, we're finished up here. It successfully took the psi up to 55. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect this, and then this will be ready to go. Next step is going to be to drain all of the water that we can out of the old water heater so it's not a pain in the to remove. Okay, so quick overview. Here's what we're working with. We have our water heater here. We have our shutoffs. We shut it off at the main, so we don't have to worry about these. We have our electrical coming in, hot water, and we have water going to our whole home humidifier through this copper tubing here. So we'll have to take care of that. And then we have our cold water coming in. We have a shutoff valve up there. We have our TMP here going down. We have a drain in the floor we can reuse. This does not have an existing drain pan, and I don't honestly have enough room for one. So the new unit is 22. It has a 22 diameter. The drain pan that would work for that, smallest one that would work for that, would be 24. There's only 23 inches from the baseboard to the front of that drain there. So luckily, Indiana code says that when you're doing a water heater swap or replacement, if the last unit didn't have a drain pan, the new unit doesn't have to have one either. So we should be okay. Tight space, of course, here. So we're going to go ahead and get water draining out of there. I have a Milwaukee pump that I'm going to be using to try to speed things up here. I've flushed this a couple of times in the past, but we may end up having sediment in there that it's not going to come out. All right, well, it just stopped pumping any water. So that took just a little over 5 minutes with the Milwaukee pump. It does 9 gallons per minute. So that checks out. That was pretty easy. All right, and you can see here just really taking my time with the electrical, making sure everything is off. And it was pretty tight space down in there, not a lot of room to work. Electrical. Again, just double checking there. Tried to put these wire nuts on there just to make it safe. They ended up falling off, so just didn't bother. We started cutting the lines here. So one thing we had to do was come back and disconnect that copper tubing up there that goes to the full home humidifier. Just jiggling the pipes there for fun. All right, so we got the new water heater in here, and went ahead and cut off the old PEX connections here. Still trying to figure out where I want to mount the thermal expansion tank. All right, so I found out where I wanted to mount it up there in the corner. I ended up mounting it here right on that stud, but it ended up creating a really tight elbow there with the PEX that was coming out of the wall. So generally this is what I did to install it, but I ended up coming back after all this, ripping all this out because I just couldn't stand it. And I put in some drywall anchors, probably in the middle between the pipe and the ductwork over there. And I mounted it there, and then I teed off that PEX. I did have to open up the drywall on the other side of the garage and rerun some PEX because I cut it a little bit too short. You've always not a plumber, so try my best here. But yeah, it was pretty easy to mount it with the straps there. And it took me a minute to figure out how those work because I really hadn't used this before. But once I figured it out, wasn't too bad at all. All right, here I am trying to scoop the water heater over into position. Just took a little bit to get it perfectly aligned there because I wanted to make sure that the duct, the outlet there could come out and we could go across to the wall, and then just checking to make sure I can remove the filter. Here I am starting to do the condensation line and the TMP lines here that goes down to the drain. I after the fact, I kind of read in the manual, you're really only supposed to hand tighten that thing. So I ended up putting tape and pipe dope on it. I don't know that I should have done that. I also went through and deburred all of the CPVC
piping that I did, that probably was also useless, but you know, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it. I haven't really had a lot of practice using that tool, so gave me some experience. I was reading the manual, believe it or not, even though my wife will tell you I never read the manual. There's video proof. My measurement strategy here was basically just to put the pipes on there, kind of line it up like where I thought it should go, and then just sort of base the next piece off of the previous piece. Worked out pretty well in the end, I think. There you can see the precise measurement of sticking my finger on the pipe. And I lost something. Go and find some more pipe.
All right, y'all. So we have got some drains going. So we just glued this one. So this is the condensate drain from the heat pump. So we, as per the manual, we need to tee up so that we can pop this off and inspect every so often. And then that comes down over right to the drain. This one is not glued yet, so we'll be doing that one next. But it goes down, follows the same curve, goes right over. What reason is all-purpose cement is meant for PVC, which is exactly what this is. All right, everybody, and here it is, the completed heat pump water heater from Rheem. So this was definitely a project. Had to make several adjustments along the way. Ended up doing one thing up there with the cold water supply line that I just didn't like, and ended up redoing it all. But really, really happy with how this came out. So, we have our cold water coming in there to a new thermal expansion tank that we needed to add to the system. Comes down into a nice braided cable that has a shutoff valve, goes into the leak guard shutoff valve there from Rheem. And then we've got our mode here is electric because we're trying to build some hot water fast. We got it set at 140 because you can see we now have a mixing valve. So we're teeing off of our cold water supply up there, coming down into the mixing valve. We've got a nice thermostat up here to tell us that we are actually at 120. So even though that says 140, we're at 120. So what this does is it takes hot water out of the tank, mixes a little bit of cold water with it to give you 120, effectively making your water heater bigger than it actually is. We have some insulation that came with the water heater up here on our pipes now. We have a quarter turn that feeds our humidifier, and we have the electrical whip that comes down and connects. The only other thing I can show you here is this leak guard jumper cable. Comes down. We've secured it neatly to the condensation line. Comes down and plugs in here at the bottom. And then, of course, we have our TMP line. It comes down, comes over, and goes into our drain. What's left? So we still have to add some venting for the output because it gets really cold if we don't, right? So we're going to take our cold air, and we're going to just take it across here, probably kind of follow this existing ductwork here, and we're going to go right out the wall with it. We would put it on the other side of the garage here. The other side of this wall is the garage. We would put it there, but there's really not a lot of options for getting back there. You can see we don't have a lot of space here to go that way. I don't really want to wrap it around here and take up walking space. So I think we're just gonna put it outside. Anyway, appreciate you guys following along on this installation. This is the first water heater that I've ever done, so please let me know how it did. If you have any feedback or things I could do differently, let me know.